The following is an encore presentation. Welcome inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams. This week, East Tennessee's Amythyst Kiah. Her latest album contemplates the cosmos.
I feel like spirituality and religion should be a time to share stories and try to understand one another, as opposed to trying to dictate which story is the most valid.
Also, hair salons are important gathering places where Black women can find community.
You know, because everybody is not going to understand where, as a Black woman, where we're coming from.
And West Virginia poet Torli Bush uses story to tackle tough subjects.
You're not wanting to explicitly preach with your poetry. You're wanting to bring people in, you're wanting to let them in on your life and maybe shift their perspective that way.
You'll hear these stories and more this week inside Appalachia. The following is an encore episode.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Welcome inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams. This is Play God and Destroy the World. It's the opening track from Amythyst Kiah's Still and Bright. The album follows 2021's Wary and Strange and features guest spots by S.G. Goodman, Billy Strings, and others. Amythyst Kiah spoke with Inside Appalachia from her home in Johnson City, Tennessee. Amythyst Kiah, thank you so much for coming on Inside Appalachia to speak with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
We're talking in late December, during the darkest time of the year, just a few days after the winter solstice. And I'm struck by the contrast to the cover of your album, Still and Bright, which depicts the brightness of day. And the album feels that way too. It feels really bold and joyful, like a new day. What did you have in mind when you started making this new album?
I was moving into a new headspace where I really wanted to really expand on my songwriting. And one big step toward that was to, get back in touch with a more spiritual or faith-based kind of side to my life, because that was something that I felt like wasn't really as present. And it's hard to cultivate that when you're running around in the rat race, trying to keep up appearances and keep up with everybody. So to me, it was important to embrace silence and stillness. And a lot of that is inspired by Taoism and Zen Buddhism, those sort of teachings I try to incorporate in my own life. And that includes things like, meditation and trying to do things where I'm more present. Really, Still and Bright is about just coming back into the real world and trying to find that balance. I mean, the yin yang is something that I have kind of incorporated in my life because it really represents that, everything on this planet is in this sort of symbiotic relationship. We have a tendency in Western thinking to separate everything into these boxes, and we fail to see the whole big picture that everything's connected. And so Still and Bright is about kind of exploring, those ideas in various ways, whether it be through, TV shows or video games that have inspired me that tell a similar story, or, meditation or the Tao Te Ching, or just, really this is about exploring my interests and the things that really resonate with me and have kind of helped shaped the way that I interact and see the world.
This album is really powerful. There's this Madeleine L'Engle quote, the author of Wrinkle in Time, that I always think about, that stories are able to help us become more whole, to become named. And naming is one of the impulses behind all art, to give a name to the cosmos we see despite all the chaos. And I love this idea about artists making cosmos from the chaos. And it feels like that's what happens in Still and Bright, repeatedly. Can you share a little of the process behind your songwriting?
Yeah, I mean, the cosmos is and undoubtedly plays a foundational role in not only in my music, but in everything that I do. It's because of whatever thing happened billions of years ago. It's the fact that being a human being on this planet, the odds and chances of me being here are so small. It's kind of a miracle that we even exist, given the vastness of the universe. I'm also really into cosmos documentaries and stuff like that too. Because to me, all of the religions that are on this planet, they stem from human beings looking up at the sky and trying to figure out what is that and why are we down here, you know? To me, like, that's part of that spiritual aspect. I think it's this idea of, I mean, they think that the universe is potentially just a larger version of, you know, the human brain. And we see all of these different, you know, plants and all these different things that have veins in the branches and in the leaves. And we just kind of see like there's like an order to things that is kind of undeniable. And one other thing I really think a lot about too is we're all part of this, and having differing cultural beliefs or different narratives about how we're here. If we're all looking up at the same sky and just coming up with different stories of, you know, how we think the universe is, why can't we just enjoy these stories and just pick the one that we like the best instead of having to force that on other people? And that's another thing that I think about a lot and talk about on the record. You know, this idea that like, which narrative is true, as if any of us will ever fully know. It has always been very disconcerting to me, because I feel like spirituality and religion should be a time to share stories and try to understand one another, as opposed to trying to dictate which story is the most valid.
So your connection to Appalachia is apparent across the album, and maybe nowhere more than on Empire of Love. Let's hear a bit of that song.
Concrete pillars, golden domes, there are kingdoms come and gone that we'll never know. My religion is none at all. I build my own cathedrals and let them fall, 'cause I don't want a theocracy or some idol ideology. We're all made from stars from above. I pledge allegiance to my soul. I follow where she needs to go. I'm a pilgrim for the empire of Johnson City, Tennessee. My home in Appalachia is still calling me.
The lyric I wanted to ask you about was Johnson City, Tennessee. My home in Appalachia is still calling me. Give me a mountain, something divine, a river that can carve its way through stone and time. I love that line. How does the
Yeah.
region and the ancient mountains here play into your songs and maybe even your worldview, if you're comfortable talking about that?
Yeah. So with Empire of Love, I co-wrote this song with Sean McConnell at his studio just outside of Nashville. And he's one of the first people outside of my immediate friend group where I could actually have a discussion about the Tao with him. He was he was also a fan of like the Tao Te Ching, and so we talked about like Eastern philosophy and stuff before we started writing. And when we got to that part of the song, because the song was an homage to, you know, where I live, and also homage to, you know, having the freedom to decide how to live my life. So with that particular line, you know, it's funny because initially I had the idea to mention Johnson City, Tennessee, which is interesting because, you know, there's the song Wagon Wheel. Most people know what Johnson City is now because of that song. So at first I thought, well, how would this seem mentioning that in this song? And I thought, well, I live here, and this is like, you know, an opportunity to, why not sing it in the song, you know? Because when I was talking with Sean about it, I was like, I don't know, do you think that would be too much? And he was like, nah, you should just go for it, leave it in there. And I was like, okay. So then after mentioning that, I was like, well, I want to take that time to kind of find a way to encapsulate how I feel about Johnson City in like 2 lines. And so when we started talking about the Tao, water is a symbol that's used a lot in the Tao. And water kind of represents yin, which is the yin part of the yin yang. Because basically, yin represents, feminine energy and I guess what you could also call negative energy, which negative doesn't mean mad. It's just a different power from positive. It's just both things have to exist. So the idea of water being more of like a feminine energy or more of a yin energy is that it has the ability to be adaptable and it can flow through tight crevices and go down to lower places. And it's also incredibly strong because, it carves pathways in mountains and it erodes earth. It takes time to do it. It kind of just represents this like still kind of life force where you can be gentle, but you can still have power. But the power is in the ability to have patience. So that's kind of how I interpret it or think of it. And that's kind of how I try to think about it in my own life. But specifically the idea of, water carving through space and time, and also thinking about the fact that the Appalachian Mountains are like, some of the oldest, it's like they're the oldest mountains in the United States. They're ancient. There's this energy and presence that I feel when I'm able to like be out in the woods or be out in the mountains. That sort of quiet, still energy is something that gives me great strength. And I think great strength from the standpoint of like just feeling present and connected and grounded in a society where there is so much emphasis on positive energy and constantly going. Even waking up and picking up your phone and looking at videos, that's positive energy. And I've been guilty of that. So I'm not better than anybody else. We've all been there because it's such an addictive form of, I guess, entertainment. But this idea of this positivity, always having to be thinking about something, doing something, not being able to sit still, those moments in the mountains or those moments being around water, being in those spaces, it's just such a regenerative experience. And that's something to me is so important and integral in my life. It felt good to be able to get these thoughts out in song.
Amythyst Kiah, thank you so much. This is a great album. I look forward to blazing it through the rest of the winter and listening to it for years to come. Thank you for coming on and speaking with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
I will not go down. I will not go down, down, down. I will not go.
Amythyst Kiah's latest album is Still and Bright. It's available on Rounder Records.
I will not go down. I will not go down.
Later in the show, we revisit the story of an Asheville restaurant renowned for its Filipino cuisine. You're inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams. We spend a lot of our lives at home or at work, but there are other spots that can be just as important to who we are. They're third places. A third place can be a coffee shop or a basketball court, or any place where people get together and connect. In Black communities, hair salons can be spaces where women feel united and accepted. In 2024, Folkways reporter Tracy Phillips took us to a hair salon in Charleston, West Virginia's West Side.
When you walk into Nappy by Nature Salon, you see a stylist blow-drying a customer's hair, another sweeping up hair from the floor, and there's lots of talk and laughter. The place is cozy and friendly, and it makes me feel nostalgic. This is where I got my prom hairdo.
We have a good time. We do laugh. Customers get together and start talking and just enjoying one another.
This is Tina Beatty. She's one of the founders of Nappy by Nature. When Tina was a senior in high school, she simultaneously attended beauty school, but she got her start way before that.
I used to do hair play with my dolls, do their hair, fix their hair, but as well, people would ask me to cornrow their hair. So that's kind of how it kind of got started.
Tina says she knew early on that she wanted to own her own shop and be her own boss.
I just had a vision, I had a dream, I had a goal in mind, and I just went and did it.
But she didn't do it on her own. She started the shop in the early 1990s with a friend, Kelly Smoot.
We was talking one day at work, and she was talking about, starting her salon. She said, it's been so long, we can do this. Do you want to come, or would you come? And I was like, bet, let's do this.
Tina says they wanted to specialize in all types of styles for Black women.
So everyone has their signature look, whether it is wearing dreads, braids, weaves, just twists, just whatever hairstyle that they want and feel comfortable in it.
Making her customers feel comfortable and proud of their hair matters a lot to Tina.
Wearing their crown proudly, not ashamed of how it may look or offend other people.
There are lots of Black hair salons on the West Side these days. But back when Tina and Kelly started their business, there were hardly any. So they wanted a name for their salon that told Black women it was a place for them.
Give it up for Naughty by Nature.
Well, there was a group called Naughty by Nature, and we just kind of, we were talking about it, and I wanted something that would identify with our culture, that when people, they would look at the name and know that it was a Black hair salon.
I just said, hey, let's just call it Nappy by Nature. We are nappy by nature. That's just the term of hair. A lot of people now say 4C, coarse, but it started out as our hair was nappy. So, nappy by nature.
Nappy is a word that's long been used to describe Black people's hair, often in a derogatory and offensive way. Under Eurocentric beauty standards, Black hair, with its kinks and coils, has been stigmatized, even within the Black community. In this scene from Spike Lee's 1988 film School Days, there's a musical battle going on at a hair salon between two groups of Black college students, throwing shade about who's got good hair and who's got bad hair.
Well, you got nappy hair. Nappy's all right with me. My hair is straight, you see. So crooked as can be.
Some of those negative stereotypes are starting to change. For instance, there's a bill in Congress that would ban discrimination based on hairstyles and textures. It's called the Crown Act. More than 20 states have already passed their own Crown Act, though not West Virginia. But the stigma surrounding Black hair is still there. Kelly says Black hair salons are a place where Black women can feel comfortable and confident with their natural selves.
It's certain things that we can do and say that we need to do and say we can't say in some spaces or do in some spaces, because everybody is not going to understand as a Black woman, where we're coming from.
Historically, Black hair salons were also a vital source of education and information. They were safe spaces where Black women could learn about health, nutrition, and other important issues. Kelly says, in some ways, they still are.
I want people to remember how I took the time with their hair and tried to teach them not only about their hair, but about sometimes what medication can do to their hair, because a lot of people don't know.
While Kelly spent many years at Nappy by Nature, she now owns her own salon on Charleston's West Side. And Tina keeps Nappy by Nature up and running with the help of her younger sister, Robin Bonner.
My sister, she has been with me ever since she's gotten out of beauty school. And she did the same thing as well as to go to beauty school her 12th grade year. It just became almost like a family tradition.
When Robin was a kid, she used to experiment with styles on Tina's hair. So by the time she was in her teens, Robin was an expert on braids and extensions.
When it came to braiding, there was only like two types of braid. You either did a French braid or you did a cornrow.
She even taught classes while she was in beauty school. Once she got out of school, Robin went straight to work at Nappy by Nature. And now her daughter, Rakira, and Tina's daughter, Tanisha, work here too.
It's family and a lot of family love, and we're just leaving a legacy right now.
As Robin washes a client's hair, Tina says after all these years, she still loves what she does.
It's just fun. Our hair texture is just fun to play with and to beautify it, to be able to take it and begin to work with it and style it and bring out the beauty of Nappy by Nature.
Tina says while Black hair salons are a place for community and fellowship, they're also a place for creativity. Kelly adds, as long as the customers feel confident enough to let them be creative. For Inside Appalachia, I'm Tracy Phillips in Charleston, West Virginia.
Asheville, North Carolina is known as one of Appalachia's cultural hubs, and that extends to its eclectic dining scene. One of its hidden gems is Ning Jr.'s, which serves up elevated Filipino cuisine. And by hidden, we mean it's a little hard to find. Ning Jr.'s is tucked away in an alley in Asheville's artsy west side. Once inside, though, you feel at home. In 2024, Folkways reporter Margaret McLeod-Leaf found her way to the restaurant and brought us this story.
The first thing I notice about Ning Jr.'s is its lively decor. There's a green-tiled open kitchen, fire engine red countertops, and turquoise walls. Adorning the space are items from Chef and Silver Ayokavazi's personal life, stuffed animals and well-worn books, trinkets from Silver's mom for good luck, a quirky telephone in the shape of a red high heel, and a vibrant painting of Silver's husband, Cherry. But what I'm here for is Chef Silver's popular creation, the adobo.
To me, it is like a quintessential Filipino dish, and it evokes all those flavors. I think a lot of people get their minds blown by it, and I love that.
Inside the kitchen, Silver cooks in a high-powered wok over an open flame.
So I'm just cooking off some onions, and we already have these braised pork cheeks.
The adobo is served with duck on the menu, but today, Silver makes the adobo with pork cheeks that he has on hand. The adobo sauce simmers while he prepares a bitter melon relish to set off the adobo. The dish has a uniquely Filipino flavor profile.
It's really kind of a tangy cuisine. Lots of vinegar and lots of sour, like a very tart. There's a lot of tart aspects to it.
The bitter melon, a spiky, cucumber-looking gourd, is almost too tangy on its own. But paired with the rich and silky adobo, my mouth waters for more. It's an example of the taste and technical skill Silver is known for. Silver was recently nominated for a James Beard Award and named one of Time magazine's next 100 people to watch. He traces the start of his cooking journey back to his mother. He has fond memories of her cooking.
She would sit down on the ground with this really heavy cutting board and tenderize meat and marinate it. And it was a really simple marinade. It was just soy and oil and garlic and onion and black pepper. But it tasted so good to me.
Silver and his mom loved the soy, garlic, and onion flavors. His mom is Filipino, and his dad is from North Carolina.
They met in Japan. My dad was stationed there. He was a Marine. My mom, a Filipino woman, was working in Japan at a karaoke bar. She was an entertainer.
Silver's parents met and married, and his mom immigrated to the United States. His mom was the only person of color in her new family. Staying connected to her Filipino heritage was difficult.
When I was little, my mom was really seeking some comfort of home and realizing she couldn't find that representation of Filipino food or cooking, or even that warmth of culture that Filipinos bring.
But she found a way to share her culture with Silver.
I would go with her to the Asian market and get all these ingredients that she could tell me about and get excited about, because I think that was like the little amount of representation that she could share with me.
It wasn't until a trip to the Philippines that Silver fully understood his mom's culture and the link between food and celebration.
Manila, I keep coming back to Manila. Simply ain't no place like Manila, Manila, I'm coming home.
I grew up between, Manila and eastern North Carolina where my grandparents lived, and really had a lot of experience in Batangas. Batangas is coastal in the Philippines where we would go visit. And because we were in town, they would just bring a reason to have a fiesta and a big celebration around food.
Those fiestas often centered on butchering and cooking a whole hog.
And this was the first time I had seen a pig be sacrificed. And a lot of the cookery in Batangas is no electricity, no gas, just fire. And to see the way these people that are living in these provinces cook with fire and break down pig and really know how to kill a pig with their hands, it's an experience I'll never forget. And also understanding how much I can appreciate food and where it comes from.
Understanding where food comes from and how to prepare it is a quest that's taken Silver from the Philippines to Southern pork barbecue to around the world in the restaurant business. He got his start right here in Asheville as a dishwasher in 2011 after a friend had suggested he'd like the city. Soon, he attended culinary school in the area and worked as a chef at Buxton Hall Barbecue, an Asheville institution, before eventually cooking at award-winning restaurants in Tokyo, New York, and Grand Cayman Island. And in 2020, he returned to Asheville to build his own community around food. Within 2 months, he secured a building with a takeout window for what would later become Nang Juniors. When designing Nang Juniors, Silver was as intentional about the space itself as the menu.
I just want to create a space that shows some representation for those that have been seeking it and know that it can exist.
At Nang Juniors, Silver has created a space that welcomes people of all ethnicities, genders, and orientations, just like Silver's mom made room for her culture when she moved to the United States.
I'm putting myself out there and my heart. It's really a passion project.
And a way to honor his mom, whose Filipino nickname is Neneng.
So her nickname is basically it's an affectionate name for a young girl. And I don't, identify as that, but Nang Jr. is an iteration of that nickname stemming from my mom's nickname because I'm her mini-me.
Silver is sharing his story through Nang's, embodying the flavors, warmth, and joyfulness of home.
I don't think of myself as just a restaurant in Asheville. I think of Nang's as a restaurant in the world. It's so important to be a Filipino restaurant in Asheville because the people need to know what this food tastes like and also understand this level of hospitality that comes from a Filipino.
And the Filipino traditions in Silver's family continue to shape the restaurant. Nang Juniors is in the process of building a stage modeled after the original karaoke bars in Japan, like the one where his mom met his dad.
Simply ain't no place like Manila. Manila, I'm coming home.
For Inside Appalachia, this is Margaret McLeod Leaf in Asheville, North Carolina.
That story and the one before it are part of our Folkways reporting project. Our reporters have brought us nearly 200 stories about broom making, African face jugs, pepperoni rolls, and more. You can find them at our website, wvpublic.org. For decades, LGBTQ people across Appalachia hid their identities to avoid harassment and even laws that targeted them. But there were places where queer folks could be themselves. Like the Shamrock, a bar in Bluefield, West Virginia. It was a beacon of safety and community for LGBTQ people in the coalfields. The Shamrock closed in 2001, and a couple of years ago, the building where it stood was torn down. But stories about the Shamrock and the woman who owned it are being preserved in a museum. Radio IQ's Roxy Todd has more.
Artist Carol Birch Brown produced a short documentary about the Shamrock Bar.
When it first started, it was a kind of a restaurant by day, and then it was a gay bar at night. And local people kind of knew that, but it was also, they were discreet.
During the 1990s, she interviewed customers and the Shamrock's owner, Helen Compton. The daughter of a coal miner, Compton opened the Shamrock in downtown Bluefield, next to the railroad tracks. She's no longer alive, but here's Compton in the documentary, sharing the inspiration for the Shamrock after she heard another bar threw out customers because they were gay.
I said, I'm going to get a bar on the main street in Bluefield and open it up to the gay people. It was just exactly like I said I was going to do it, and that's what I done. I paid $10,000 cash for the place the day I bought it, and I said within a year I'm going to have my $10,000 back, and I had it back in 6 months.
As the Shamrock's owner, Compton was fiercely protective of her customers and would defend them if necessary. She said she wanted the Shamrock to be a safe place where gay people didn't have to worry about being threatened. She stood at the door, checking to make sure nobody brought guns inside.
She kept a bat behind the bar. So if there's any trouble, she would get her bat out and go and take care of it. And I know she used it a few times.
Clinton Stone, a hairstylist in Blacksburg, remembers Compton's baseball bat.
I mean, I did have a few times that I saw her tell somebody to get out, or, there would be bodily injury if they didn't.
Stone first went to the Shamrock in 1986 when he was 21.
And Miss Helen was right at the door, warm, friendly, welcoming. She herself just seemed nice, but you could tell there was an undercurrent there that, was just protective. So, and I think everybody felt that.
The Shamrock felt safe, not just because of Miss Helen, but also because of the community that grew up around her. Stone says the Shamrock felt like one of the only places where he could be himself.
Well, there's a lot of people there that were like me, and that made me feel like I hadn't really been around gay people that much at that point.
Most of the customers lived near Bluefield, but some drove from hours away.
It drew from North Carolina, Virginia, Kentucky. People came to the Shamrock from a lot of different places because there weren't that many places to go.
The Shamrock's reputation grew after it began hosting drag shows. Compton recalled one night when she was talking with a few of the customers.
They was talking about dressing, stealing their mother's dresses and their sister's dresses and dressing up. And I said, well, y'all like to do that? Lord. And I said, okay, y'all come in here next Saturday. We'll have a show and you do it. And I hung a sheet from that wall right there to the kitchen wall and let them come out from behind the sheet to perform.
The lighting in the Shamrock was dim, with one spotlight on the performers.
A lot of the parts of the costumes were handmade. A lot of the performers really got into making their own costumes.
Most of the activity was backstage. There was laughter and banter as the performers put on their makeup and hair. The Shamrock provided a chance for gay men and women to socialize and created a home away from home where they could be creative.
That was really hard to find in the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s when this was really in its heyday.
The building where the Shamrock Bar used to be was demolished last year. There is an exhibit about the Shamrock in the One Thin Dime Museum in Bluefield. It features a chandelier that once hung in the Shamrock and Compton's famous wooden baseball bat. I'm Roxy Todd.
It's been 2 years since a Norfolk Southern train derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, near the Pennsylvania border. The burning rail cars released industrial chemicals that contaminated the community and made hundreds of people sick. Even now, scientists are concerned how the derailment could affect the long-term health of residents. The Allegheny Front's Julie Grant has more.
On the night of February 3rd, 2023, Zsuzsa Jenis and her 9-year-old son watched from their apartment window in East Palestine at the flames and explosions from the train derailment. Her son was excited and scared, but eventually fell asleep. Then around 3 a.m, she heard a strange, loud noise coming from his room. She rushed in, and a powerful bleach smell hit her right away.
And my son is, up in his bed coughing, vomiting, like projectile vomiting, shaking. He's gasping for air, begging for water.
Janice was terrified and could feel it in her body too. Within minutes, she decided it was too dangerous to be there.
That's all it took. And then, I was like, we got to go.
They drove 20 miles east to a hotel in Chippewa, Pennsylvania, near her son's grandmother. The next morning, he seemed fine, back to his normal self, but he developed rashes on his arm. A couple of days later, as a pile of train cars smoldered in East Palestine, emergency responders decided to vent 1 million pounds of vinyl chloride from 5 of the tankers and burn it. Otherwise, they worried the cars could explode. Vinyl chloride is used in the process of making polyvinyl chloride, or PVC, a common plastic. Shortly after that chemical burn, Janice, who was still 20 miles away, was leaving her son's grandmother's house.
I stepped outside and it was literally like a black wall, like in the middle of her street.
In the months that followed, Janice started having menstrual issues, and her son had unexplained rashes on his face. The Centers for Disease Control conducted what's called an ACE survey of 700 area residents taken after the chemical exposures. They found that people had headaches, coughing, difficulty breathing, and other symptoms. At a CDC meeting in East Palestine, Janice and other residents brought the results of urine testing that showed the markers for vinyl chloride in their bodies. But a CDC toxicologist told them there was no treatment to remove those chemicals and advised them to track their health with a medical provider in case they develop cancer.
My jaw dropped. They came in and said these ACE surveys showed that you guys are sick, and yeah, the symptoms match chemical exposure. And then we're just not doing anything about it.
Since then, researchers have stepped in with a variety of studies funded by the federal government. Julian Beyer, a medical researcher, is studying vinyl chloride exposures from the derailment and its aftermath. In 2010, she worked with a team at the University of Louisville that identified a specific liver disease in workers who were exposed to high levels of vinyl chloride. Now, at the University of Pittsburgh, Beyer is looking at the impact of low-level environmental exposures to vinyl chloride. Her team dosed mice with the chemical in amounts currently considered safe in the U.S., and all of those mice developed tumors.
80% of those cases were hepatocellular carcinoma. HCC, that's the major malignant liver cancer.
In East Palestine, Beyer's team is collecting blood and urine samples from about 300 people and testing their liver function. They're also sampling the air and water, both in and outdoors, to see if residents are still being exposed to vinyl chloride.
So if there are homes with higher concentrations of chemicals in the air or water, we predict that these residents may progress faster in their liver disease.
Of course, they hope people don't develop liver disease, but she wants more attention on the health impacts of chemicals like vinyl chloride.
Most of the physicians that I speak to, they have no idea what to do. If somebody that thinks that their liver disease comes from environmental exposures, they don't know what to look for, and I think we need to figure this out.
Today, Janice and her son are settled in another town, but they still have health issues, like his unexplained rashes. She worries about what their exposures will mean for their health in the future.
We all have to ask ourselves that the rest of our lives every single day. Is this from the derailment? What do I do?
That was from Julie Grant at the Allegheny Front, which covers environmental issues in western Pennsylvania. There's a rich tradition of Black Appalachian poets and writers. One of the newest is Torli Bush, who grew up in Webster Springs, West Virginia. Bush has won poetry slams in the region and now has a new book, Requiem for a Redbird. Producer Bill Lynch spoke with Bush about the book.
Would you like to read something?
Sure. I can read something from the book. There's also been a ton of new stuff that I've been working on, but I guess I'll start off with this one. And actually, I want to try to get through this without. Whereas Appalachia was always black, queer, and wild, a sax solo following the guitar riffs of a grunge duo rocking against the man at 123 Pleasant Street in Morgantown. Whereas Pittsburgh is our Paris, the Presbyterian Church in East Liberty and Notre Dame across from Capri's Pizzeria, where I started doing poetry, the Abbey on Butler Street, and Apothecary, an alternative healing through hospitality and wine. Whereas the religiosity has a way of separating us. I was the only black person in my church growing up. I say was because I left it for Methodism, not because I left the faith altogether. Many of us are still in the process of toppling white Jesus, whereas I have to get away from the fire and the brimstone. So I run from Park Hole to Webster Springs and back every morning. Play basketball from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. every weekend of the summer with my rival of 16 years on the concrete courts of Baker's Island, whereas I return home to my grandmother's corn oil, salt, and pepper fried potatoes. Throw some chicken in a skillet, have a feast, crash on the couch because my room is wall-mounted AC, got infested with yellow jackets one summer, and my grandpa had to kill them and seal it up, whereas I'm having another one of those wild dreams of outrunning the Flatwoods monster who swallows everything in his path towards a pink sun horizon, and my workhorse Chevy Impala that my granddad got in 2005 when I was 10 and hooked on the PlayStation 2, whereas I stopped at a Tudor's along the way. I figured I had the time. It was only the end of the world. I saw the Mothman chase his dinner down with raspberry moonshine, fly out the window at Mach 1, and beat the monster's green mall toothless for threatening them biscuits, whereas I stepped out of Tudor's and found myself back in Pittsburgh performing at City of Asylum, a haven for writers escaping political persecution abroad. What a hope to write in the face of injustice, whereas I remember going to Harper's Ferry for the first time, learning about Storer College and the Niagara movement, black men becoming educators and planting seeds for the NAACP. In West Virginia, be it therefore resolved, we have always been here, the church, the moonshine, the wild music playing us out into the night.
That was remarkable.
Thank you.
Just to say this so that my listeners understand this, you didn't read that. You did that off the top of your head, and the cadence, and there's so much in there. Wow. Do you do all your poems like that or just a couple?
So the way that I got started into poetry was I'd taken some creative writing workshops here at WVU. I think it was my junior year in my undergrad. And long story short, I wound up performing at Steel City Slam in Pittsburgh and got involved in that slam scene. And I met a guy there who was originally from Clarksburg named Joe Limer. He was mixed descent like me, but he was Filipino American. He graduated from WVU Law, was teaching out at San Marcos at Palomar College in California, but he would come back and go to the slam at Pittsburgh. He started mentoring me a bit and got me into these different drills on like how to work on your poetry and performing it like that. And that's where that sort of stemmed from. And then the other form and craft, like how that poem has that whereas structure, that sort of came from grad school work later on that I had at West Virginia Wesleyan.
Tell me about the poem itself. It seems very personal. I feel like you were describing your life in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So like the place that I had gotten the structure of that poem from is it's the collection is called Whereas. It's by Layli Long Soldier, and throughout that collection, she makes use of the whereas and that resolution form. But I wanted to kind of play on it as a resolution that also does tell a story, and that's what I wanted to mix in, because I just have such a love for growing up here and like everything that I've experienced here. I don't know of the poems in this collection. This one actually might be my favorite one that I've written, partly because it gets into speaking into Appalachia as being such a complex place, and it talks about race and faith and everything else that I'm interested in, but it does do it through this lens of bringing someone in through a story. It's not, and this goes back to me talking about Joe earlier. Like one of the first things that he taught me was you're not wanting to like explicitly preach with your poetry. You're wanting to bring people in. You're wanting to let them in on your life and maybe shift their perspective that way. But there has to be a place for them as the reader to connect with you as a person.
Tell me about growing up in West Virginia.
I grew up in Webster Springs. Was raised by my grandparents on my father's side. I mean, I had good friends coming up through school. It was odd, and I didn't realize like some of these things until later. Like for a long time, like coming up through school, I was like the only black person in my grade. And like the way that I view race, I think, is more of like I think that there's a lot of bridges that can be built along the lines of class between people. I think that you have a history of that here in West Virginia in terms of like what the unions were able to do. Obviously met with all sorts of conflict from the powers that be, but that's been one thing that whenever I got into slam that like I kind of noticed was just sort of the different perspectives that I had about race from like growing up here. Apart from that, my own experience, I guess you'd say with racism, it's only ever been like verbal. Like I've never been physically attacked for my race, but I've had some just slurs and things of that nature come up, but been able to navigate it. And I think that's also part of like what I was trying to navigate in the book, and then like also taking it into the bigger context of like how it is across the country.
So what are your days like these days?
My day job is I'm working as a construction inspector. I guess I should mention that my undergrad from WVU is in mechanical engineering. There's a whole thing about going from that to doing both in terms of the engineering and the writing, but that's what my days mostly look like. I'm currently on a streetscape project, and it's a lot of just refurbishing of sidewalks, planting landscape, that sort of thing. I really do like to see all of the people that are working as the contractors doing different jobs, because I mean, people will just often like drive by and not really see a lot of even though all the products come out to look to be like these really simple things, there's a lot of precision in terms of what they're having to do with like drawing strings, cutting boards. Like, even though everything is simple, there's like this meditative, almost like a poetic art to what they're doing, even if it is messy.
What happens next for you as far as your poetry?
Yeah, I'm actually, I think, close to getting the first draft of a second collection done. Actually, if you give me a minute, this one is one that I'll have to pull up to read. But one of the poems I had actually just finished the other day was it was in response to a prompt, and I've been reading Conflict Resolution for Holy Beings. It's a collection by Joy Harjo. She's U.S. Poet Laureate from the Muskogee Creek tribe. And this one was, I think this one was just good to read with the moment that we're in. The title of this one is Post-Election Prayer. Post-election prayer after Joy Harjo. That your hope remains as rooted as the Appalachian mountains that I call home. That your persistence is as steadfast as the Elk River, abiding even in drought and swelling with the good rains. That you know your gratitude is to your lost loved ones, their hymnal song piercing your political silos, your duty to your fellow human beings, clear as the reflection of dear eyes breaking the night. For though you cannot overcome every evil of the world, you can sing against its deafening roar. A meal, a donation to rebuild, a book to the inmate, a listening ear and kind word to the stranger, a voice to defend the immigrant and those persecuted. We, a chorus declaring to this madness, enough. That's one of the most recent pieces that I've gotten done.
Yeah, I can almost feel the ink still not drying on that one. That's amazing.
And that's another thing that I've been trying to do is like there's been a lot of stuff that I've had to, I guess, process over the course of this whole cycle as a writer and as a poet. And I'm trying to really maintain what I managed to strike with my first collection in terms of having a sense of balance of like knowing when and how to express a focus and a calling out of what is wrong, and balancing that with the joy that you can still see in your life and the good around you, and like trying to strike a balance with that.
Requiem for a Redbird is available from Pulley Press, an imprint of Clyde Hill Publishing. Till next time, thanks for joining us as we journey throughout Appalachia. Our theme music is by Matt Jackford. Other music this week was provided by Amythyst Kiah, John Blissard, Mary Hott, John Ingram, Jeff Ellis, and Dinosaur Burps. Bill Lynch is our producer. Abby Neff is our associate producer. Our executive producer is Eric Douglas. Kelly Libby is our editor. Our audio mixer is Patrick Stevens. We had help this week from Folkways editor Jennifer Gorin. You can find us on Instagram @InAppalachia. You can also send us an email to insideappalachia@wvpublic.org. Visit wvpublic.org/InsideAppalachia to subscribe or stream all of our stories. Or look for Inside Appalachia on your favorite podcast app. Inside Appalachia is a production of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.